When it comes to assigning contracts in real estate, the concept can be a little tricky to grasp at first. So I'm going to start by explaining how assignments were meant to be used, and then I'm going to give an example on how they can be used with an interesting loophole. Let's say you're a real estate investor who doesn't like to buy properties with basements. One day, you get a lead on an investment property from a seller who says the property was built on a slab foundation. You both agree on doing a deal and enter into a purchase agreement, but lo and behold, during your due diligence, you find out that the seller wasn't entirely honest with you and the property does indeed have a basement. At this point, you have two options. You can back out of the deal and walk away, or if you happen to know another investor who doesn't mind properties with basements and they like the deal, you can assign your rights in the purchase agreement to this other investor for a fee. Now, in order for this to work, you need to make sure that the original purchase agreement has the proper legal jargon that gives you the ability to do this. But as long as it's in there, instead of walking away with nothing but a waste of your time, you can actually walk away with a little money in your pocket. The process looks like this. You and the new investor would complete a brand new contract called an assignment agreement. This agreement lays out the terms of how this new investor is replacing you as the buyer and that they're also paying you an assignment fee which compensates you for your trouble and allows them to buy their way into the purchase agreement to assume your position as the new purchaser. When this is done correctly and the deal is closed, you'll be able to walk away with some money in your pocket, the seller is still able to sell their property, and the new investor is able to get a great deal. It's a true win-win for everyone involved. This is how assigning contracts are meant to be used. But here's a question. Wasn't it interesting how you were able to walk away with money in your pocket even though you never put any of your own money into the deal personally? What if you use this concept just to find deals for end buyers? Think of how many more deals you could do if you weren't actually buying anything yourself and you didn't have to come up with any of the cash on your own. This is where the loophole comes in. Some investors, specifically real estate wholesalers, commonly assign contracts with the full intent of assigning them to another buyer for a fee. Some wholesalers actually build their entire business model around doing these assignments. Here's an example. Let's say you get a property under contract for $50,000. You then find another investor who has the cash and wants to buy your position in the contract, and so they pay you a $5,000 assignment fee to take over the deal. The buyer is still getting a great deal on the property for $55,000 all in. The seller is still able to sell off their property, and you get to walk away with $5,000. It's a pretty sweet deal, right? This business model is intriguing because if done correctly, you can make thousands of dollars just by acting as the middleman and connecting motivated sellers with cash buyers, with little to none of your own money involved in the transaction. On paper, this all sounds pretty great, but we want to strongly suggest that you seek legal advice as to whether or not this strategy is actually legal. Some states have basically outlawed assigning contracts without the involvement of a licensed real estate agent. The reason is, when you enter into a purchase agreement without the actual intent to buy the property yourself, the contract is somewhat misleading, and in some jurisdictions, the purchase agreement may effectively be null and void. Likewise, if your primary business model is to do these types of assignments and you're not a licensed real estate agent, it could be interpreted that you're acting as a real estate agent without a license. Understandably, there are differing opinions on the legality and ethics behind this type of transaction, but as you can imagine, when it's done correctly and communicated clearly to all parties involved, it can work to everyone's benefit. In different markets around the country, some local governing bodies are more strict with their laws than others, and this is why it's in your best interest to consult with a local real estate attorney in your area just to ensure you understand what is and isn't allowed, to make sure you're using the right documentation and that all parties involved are acting within the confines of the law. We hope this explanation helps you understand the basics of how an assignment works in real estate. Again, we're not lawyers, and this video isn't intended to be legal advice, so be sure to talk with a legal professional in your area before you dive into this strategy any further. For more tips, tricks, tutorials, and real-world guidance on how to crush it as a real estate investor, come and join us over at REtipster.com.